witness. The people that have been here, the knowledge, the wisdom, it is extremely humbling. Extremely humbling. And I was quietly working on this presentation for quite some time. And I realized, wow, almost every slide there's going to be at least one person somewhere, maybe in this room, who has a depth that is greater than mine. I just want to say I honor you for that. And what I am going to do uniquely is present my own perspective and link things together, and hopefully there'll be some breakthroughs in that. I am a Canadian who lives in Italy. I moved there with my wife, now wife, and I have a family, a homestead, a farm. I did that for about 10 years. All right, so I'm not going to go into myself too deeply. I just say this is my flagship project. This, if you can see it, is a massive galaxy in a garden. Yeah, the client, he wanted a galaxy garden, and I had to deliver. Those are the moments where you realize you can do things that you never thought you could. And this is me, younger years, 12 years ago, my son, microgreen farm, edible salads, building greenhouses, foundations, my daughter. Just to give you a little idea, images can commune more than words. This is a field full of amaranth, which I cut for edible salad mixes. Very, very vital, very charged, lots of things. This is a serpentine zucchini. Look at the size of that. It's out of the frame. I don't know if you can see it well with here in the light, but I was on a quest. I was a nutritionist by trade, and I came to Italy, and I wanted to grow the most nutrient-dense food possible. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. It's microbes, it's minerals, it's this, it's that, and I got into it all. I was like a crazy person who went from extreme to extreme, quietly tinkering away. There's micro colonies of different kinds, thermophilic compost, aerated compost teas at scale, like crazy stuff. It might mean nothing to you, but for me, it was everything. And I saw incredible results. And we had a very successful farm on paper. This has been my life, a lot of success on paper, but feeling quite empty inside, oddly enough. Lonely, isolated. We had metrics that didn't really matter. I was a robot. And when COVID came, I transformed our homestead cathartically. This is a video. It does not play on a PDF, alas, before and after, but it transformed into something great in 5 years. Trees that are much, much bigger. You can't even see the wall in the foreground there afterwards. You have to take my word for it. And I got into what I later discovered was electroculture. And I will get into that. Those of you who has heard the word electroculture, who has seen that? Wow, surprisingly majority. I guess that's why you're here. And you think copper spirals, right?
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, there's a copper spiral off in the corner, you know. And I've got an aluminum one down there. You ever think aluminum spirals? No, but they work sometimes. It's a lot more than that, a heck of a lot more than that. Look at this zucchini here. That is this long.
Wow.
I mean, they do get long, but this is extraordinarily long. Sunflower. Look at the size of that leaf.
Wow.
The head was this big. Now, it is a giant sunflower variety, but astronomical. I'm not going to tell any lies. You know, some cultivars or plants, they do get big, but the difference with electroculture is they also accumulate nutrients. They don't just expand in volume. So this is the secret. And then I got into garden design. I was happy that my farm finished, actually. I suddenly started doing something that I actually loved, and I wasn't a robot just with my back down and a stiff. When you have a stiff back, life is different.
Yeah.
And I started making gardens and working with gardens and helping people to have gardens that were beautiful and transformative. And I realize now I'm not going to get through all my slides. I'm talking a lot more on slides than I should, but hey, I'll go for it. But this here is magical. Magical. Did you know that spiders migrate in the atmosphere? Yeah. On little webs like parachutes. I didn't know that. And this particular site, they rained down one morning and I found them there. And these are the mysteries of life, you know. When you don't know these things, they seem magical. And when you know them even deeper, they seem magical. Because the deeper you go, the more you realize how bizarre it gets. Not all locations are, I'm going to just jump through my stuff. Afterwards, if you want to see, I've got a Facebook community. It's 300,000 people strong now. About 100 articles on Substack. We ranked, actually, oddly enough, number 7 in climate and environment. I have never spoken about climate. But who knows, maybe that connection will be drawn that CO2 isn't actually the problem we're having right now. It's much more complicated than that. And with Earth changes and ascension, as people speak on, there's an energy exchange that's happening all the time from the cosmos, and it is coming through us, it's coming through the Earth. And if we don't ground it in ourselves, we'll get cancer. I'm getting goosebumps. We'll get sick. We'll get disease because it's going to burst from an area that has resistance. The Earth is the same thing. We have ripped out so much from the belly of the Earth. And energy that comes down, it is reverberating down to the core of the Earth. And it's going back up. When there's an imbalance, what are the Earth changes? It's that. It's the same thing inside of us. But we can heal it. And the most powerful thing, we can stop the presentation right now. It's here. The hearts. Everything that I'm going to show you it means nothing in relation to that. They are tools. They're a gateway. That's what it has been for me. And I realized a month ago, this is my home, family home. We built it during COVID. It's illegal, abusive. They call it abusive structure. Abusive structure.
Wow. So beautiful, though.
Yeah, abusive, though. There are sacred oak trees behind it with trunks like this. Shades us from the 40 degrees Celsius sun. Stops the pelting of rain on a tin roof. Keeps the satellites away. They didn't know it was there. Well, 7th of July, something strange happened. Lightning struck. Electroculture, lightning. I was writing about the sacred oak and the channeling of cosmic energy and divination and all this stuff. And I'm sleeping on the couch. It's hot and sweaty. But then it starts this thunderstorm. And there's all this energy in the sky. And it's just like, it wants to come down, but it's just there. And I'm like, oh, I am on an alien planet. I am on an alien planet. I was actually quite scared because it was insane. And I got up to close the window. And I didn't know it then, but lightning had struck one of the oak trees 2 meters away from where I was standing. The window blew right off the wall, wedged between the couch that I was standing in, the drywall, smeared yellow paint across it. So I've got photos, it did happen. And it didn't break anything. No glass, nothing. I was standing there. I got a bit of barrow trauma from the EMF. That same day, our community hit 300,000 people. That was the transit where Gemini, anyway, it'll come to me. It was something astrological. It was significant, an 80-year cycle, and I've gaffed on it, but alas. And it meant everything. I read it, and it was like, wow, the universe works through symbols. And I was that fragile oak, and here I am now. Here we go. We can't see really much here, so. Yes, Uranus.
Went into Gemini.
Yeah. 80-year cycle as far as I could tell. And it was strange because it all spoke. I mean, I've got the burnt tree in the bottom. I think I'm going to make some pendulums out of that. So I wanted to do a fundraiser because I got to take that community off of Facebook because they are censoring us now, actually. But that's not important. This is a site, very beautiful, sacred site. You can't see the images that well. Those are 2 neurons that want to connect. All right. And this is the theme of Electroculture. It's about connection. It's about creating a connection between different forces. And plants are an intermediary of that connection. They're green for a reason, just like our hearts. The heart chakra, green. It's that union. It's a union between the infinity, right? The vacuum. You can't see it very well. I'm going to jump through any slides that are not relevant for the lack of imagery. I was speaking with Rupert Sheldrake. I'm very fortunate with, you see, the vanity metric of a 300,000 person group might not, give me monetary metrics. It might not give me joy to interact with people directly, but it creates this weird perception. Like, suddenly his assistant is like, sure, I'll pass you on to Rupert.
Yeah, baby.
Okay. And he wanted me to do a study, and I was like, what? Are you serious? He wanted me to study and verify that plants were electric. Well, I don't have to study that to verify that plants are electric. It's already been demonstrated. This is an image of a sunflower. This is the radiation of the sunflower within the spectrum of UV light, which bees are able to see. How convenient. It shows us, though, it corresponds with the way that electrons also flow within plants, which is the side image there. It turns out, Rupert, that other people have actually done it. He wanted to prove it, though, in a different way. Anyway. Yeah, electroculture, what is it? Well, it encompasses a lot of different things, It's not just spirals in copper. It goes deep, and we're going to go into some of those. I'm not going to go through a list. Let's just jump through the slides here. It's not that. It's not what the Chinese are doing with high voltage in greenhouses. They're getting good yields, but it's just another form of manipulation, that. It's not solar panels on electrical lines. Yeah, it works. But it's about entraining with the actual rhythms that are already present all the time that we do not see. Electric, magnetic, electromagnetic, so EMF, frequency-based, and subtle energies that we don't understand, like toroidal fields, torsion fields, scalar energy. It encompasses a lot. Sound as well. Massive cannabis plants with pulse electricity. Colleague of mine works with active electroculture, which is more the technique of using AC electricity from the grid. I don't like it. It's dangerous. That's where, someone asked me earlier, so are you the electric man?
Yeah.
No, because I don't work with direct current from the wall. That's not what I do. It's more subtle than that. Some people do, and they don't think we have any merit. But the work we're doing has been proven. Massive here. This is from the 1920s. This is a cabbage. Wow. There's the face. You can't really see it. It's gray, but incredible. Justin Christoph Flo was a pioneer. He made this aerial antenna. It's a lot more advanced than a spiral, let's put it that way. Various mechanisms at play. If you come afterwards to my workshop, we can do Q&A and go into deep as to what different mechanisms are involved with antennas, but it's much deeper than copper. We're going to keep going so you can see other devices as well. He also used galvanized steel wire buried underneath the ground to pass the currents down, but also aligned it with the magnetic field of the Earth, which, as it turns out, is always fluxing and breathing with the sun. Well, yeah, obviously, but this is like water in a dike that's channeled. It's the same thing. You're channeling the current or the magnetic field in a local area, and plants respond positively to that. There's Christoph Flo on the side. Look at that cabbage.
That's massive.
Well, it's been done by others even now, you see?
Wow.
It's not, that's 1922 spinach leaf with current colleagues in Italy. People in our community, how many times people have said, I thought this was bunk until I actually did it and I saw these results, like, the snow melting around a plant because there's a coil. Yeah, that does heat up with the sun, but it's more than that. This guy, never seen results so quickly in his life, Afterwards, if you're interested, if you want to leave me your email, I can give you this slide deck if you want to see some of the details, which is, this is history. I won't go into all of that now, but different researchers in modern times. But it's much more ancient than that. It's not just from Christoph Flo. It's not just from even the 1700s with the advent of electricity. Ancient cultures were doing it already, you know. This is connecting with Avebury Henge. I'm not from the British Isles. I've never been to a Stonehenge, oddly enough. But these paramagnetic stones are aligned together in a line, and they pump magnetic energy straight to the circle. Why?
While you're here, you should go and see. We're not far away.
I think I better, yeah. Does anybody see different images of geometries encoded in things? You know, and sound as well. It's all connected. DNA, cymatic waves, you know, our brains, entrainment. Many of you know that very well. And I thought, well, if that's the case, then perhaps through landscape design, we could actually channel some of these unseen energies to stimulate life. And that's how I got that massive sunflower, among other techniques, which I'll cover. This here is sacred mountains and volcanoes. Did you know they have the same angle? It's called the angle of repose for sand. So if you take sand, or you take sugar, next time you're at a restaurant, you just open it up with your kids, right? You just do it on the table, right? Look at this, science. Don't eat it. Look at it. It forms this angle. It seems arbitrary, 32.72 degrees. Well, that is the angle of our DNA when it's desiccated. Is it a coincidence that sacred mountains are sacred for a reason, that meditators would go up and pray on certain areas? And this is to show brainwave patterns in association with the different ranges and the cymatics of that on water, just indicating the frequency. And I didn't mention, I have a podcast actually, and I go into all this stuff in much more detail, freely available if you're interested afterwards. Speak with me. Same with pyramids and pyramid tech. Very peculiar angles. Many of you are aware of the angles, and if you haven't, you've probably dabbled to some extent into such angles, and angles of rainbows and angles and proportions of the sun to the moon to the earth, and all of those things layered. I don't need to go into that. But what's interesting is that if you mirror those with pyramid devices made of copper and even paper, actually. But copper is interesting. It seems to work better with plants from my experience. You can channel energy, not just for meditation, but for charging stones, crystals, for your healing practices, or for even broadcasting them against the land. Did you notice earlier that I was about to cry when I talked about ripping stuff out of the earth? Maybe it's in our interest to charge some of the stones we've taken and strategically place them and gift them around. Because, we won't go into the details of why, but you can intuitively feel that. This researcher here, Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, epic book, changed my entire life. John Burke, Kaj Halberg, his colleague. They took electrostatic voltmeters to measure the electrical currents in the air, magnetometers, like geomagnetometers that could read like micro Teslas and even nano Teslas. So very, very, very minute magnetic fields in the landscape. So precise that any subtle bang would wreck the device. Thousands of dollars gone, bam. Well, he wasn't a dowser, but he wanted to prove scientifically that it was empirical and he could measure it and all that stuff, right? And he had the hypothesis that maybe the ancient mound builders, pyramid builders, that they used it for utility. Maybe their fertility rites actually had merit. Maybe they weren't worshiping gods for just the sake of it. Maybe the corn god and the sky god together at a specific day, which earlier the talk outlined that, the equinoxes and the solstice. Maybe there was a connection with the stars and energy flowed and it was like a lock and key principle. Well, he was right. He used these devices, he proved it, what many of you know intuitively, but the results were astonishing. He also saw that prayer flags. So he would take his devices up to sacred mountains and he would find places with prayer flags. And how did those people know that that was the place to do your medicine quest? To sit there in silence and not drink or eat, connect with God. Well, he saw in those places that, yeah, they were unusual. And back to what I showed earlier, they're changing our brainwave patterns, our heart entrainment. But they're also having an impact on seeds. This is the demonstration he used. The same seeds, traditional seeds that were used for corn, charging by the Olmec, predated the Mayans, the Aztecs. He charged them on the older Olmec pyramids in Mesoamerica. Just one day at the top of the pyramids, and the results were astonishing. 3 to 4, 5 days earlier germination, sometimes 10, 20% greater yields. I've done that with copper pyramids with similar results. It's a technology. And not all pyramids work, oddly enough. There's been earth changes since then, and alignments have shuffled, and there are some pyramids that found didn't work. But oddly enough, the Olmec were very successful with what they did. The earth, of course, is electric. We see patterns of electricity in all things. These images are hard to see, so I'm going to jump through and just orally explain here. When that lightning struck that tree, do you think that was the only force that was coming down? Was there a law of coherence and polarity?
Yeah.
There's an equal force seeking to unite. Right? And Qigong, I learned that today, and I didn't know that before. It's like I'm so rigid in my body like that oak tree. Qigong is the same thing. It's that harmonizing of forces, and when you do that, you amplify your qi, your vitality. Well, the earth is doing the same thing with the exchange. And there are different nexus points where forces unite, tips of our eyes, tips of our fingers, right? We see that with Carillion photography. You see that when you look in the eyes of your beloved. And the sun is doing that with the earth. From one sphere to another. They are in love with each other. Yeah? And you can't see it here, but it's very strange patterns, right? Charged particles, when they hit the magnetosphere, the outer portion of the earth, the upper atmosphere, the ionosphere, it forms these electrical patterns that mirror dendritic patterns and river deltas in our vasculature system. It's all very, very strange points of connection. Magnetic fields, electric fields from the sun are directly correlated with famines, pandemics. There's science to that. I can explain to that later, but it is all layered together. And what this phenomena does, this exchange between the earth and the sun, is it creates a electrostatic field. Like if you rub a balloon on your head, you know, your hair starts to pull up. It's like levity. Have you ever drank spring water before?
Yeah.
What does it make you feel?
Good.
Lighter?
Lighter.
Levity. That force is wanting to rise up and unite with the heavens.
Yeah.
Right? The primary water that was under the ground and had never touched the surface, yet chose to come out at that particular spot.
Yeah.
Not all places are created equal, which is what I've come to learn. And that some devices, and that's why praying and meditating over a particular locale is going to have a different effect than another. But the same is true for putting a pyramid somewhere, or for building a standing stone, which we can do now very inexpensively using pipes and ground up discard from quarries. And see the effects on life. So it's the law of polarity, essentially. Polar forces, electrons, generally speaking, in the soil, positive ions in the atmosphere. The differential between the two creates this electric field, and we can feel it, we can measure it. But it's elongating plants as well, because they're composed of water. They're structuring as they rise up, and they're oscillating rhythms, side to side, side to side. We do it too. You just can't see it. I mean, I oscillate. This is interesting. We had the very large solar storm not that long ago. We got a few. It's been a very active period. It charged all of the electric currents in the soil throughout the United States and was monitored. And depending on the soil profile, it changed the intensity of the charge. And it's well understood, but not communicated. So the connection I have is, well, earthquakes, hello, earth changes, hello, energy in, energy out. If there's an imbalance, it's got to go. Volcano, pressure valve, release. Revolutions, what are they? Our hearts can't take it anymore. So everything is electric, everything is magnetic, everything is communicating. This is a coronal discharge on pine needles up in the Arctic Circle. This is an aurora borealis. Very similar within the atmosphere. Charged particles moving through the gases, right? Creating the color. Electrical currents rising up through the plant, coming out of the tips. When I spoke about lightning, there's below and above. Well, here I want to reach up. I want to touch it. So plants are electric. We are electric. So when we use different forces, and this is a device a colleague of mine made. It's actually printed from a circuit board and cut with a laser cutter, and is gold tipped, doesn't corrode very easily, and is using the same phenomena. It's creating coronal discharges from thunderstorms and raised up and channeling that down into the soil and creating that conduit. Because yeah, lightning might strike it, but I had this in my garden.
By your oak.
It wasn't close to my oak. It chose to strike the oak. But that's because the oak, out of all trees, accumulates the most amount of iron. It's the only tree in this particular climate that doesn't die afterwards as well.
Wow.
Hence the sacredness. So that oak is seeding that energy in a radius and supporting the life forms all around it. It's moving through the mycorrhizal fungi, the hypha. It's like think mushrooms on the surface, the fruiting body. It's the part you don't see. It's the white stuff that looks like hairs that's running through, and it's sending electrical signals and nutrients and information over kilometers sometimes. Well, what if trees would be channeling that? So here's the one I set up over my. You can see there's a abandoned 8-sided church in the background there too. I'm right on a cemetery, oddly enough. But that is showing the kiwi growing up about 5 meters, vining up to the top. Now it doesn't work. It's short-circuited. But it wants to rise up to that differential. So the plants they're moving. They're seeking to unite. Like those neurons I showed earlier, all things want to connect, right? It's intermediaries. But when there's distortion, strange things happen. These are flowers, verbenum, as well as I think mullein, very large wild mullein, and it's all crooked. It flowered. It timed its flowering with a massive solar storm from the sun, and many flowers in that particular moment that were stems that go upwards, and flowers are antennas, and this proves it. It got bent because the energy was too much. It couldn't use it. And you can see the weird effects. These things happen. Do you ever look at things through a different lens? You know, these things are all around us. Like now, it's only once I've started to tap into things that I've started to see things with different eyes. So I got into making spiral antennas with molds. Afterwards, I can show you. I've got some, and maybe we'll make some with the workshop if you're interested. You can take some home as well. These are 3D printed molds. You can also buy molds. You can sell them online. These are 3D printed molds that are within the Fibonacci sequence, and they seem to have a better effect. Their magnetic fields are unique. This is a particular project, a client that has a vineyard in an area that was really not suitable. She never farmed in her life, and she bought it, and poor woman didn't know. And well, it was on a north-facing slope, whereby the sun would create shade pockets, and for vineyards, that's not good. Disease, fungal disease, humidity. Well, we broadcasted paramagnetic basalt and some quartz crystal and dolomite crystal, and we made standing stones in tubes, and we placed them at specific sites. And lo and behold, it now doesn't have fungal disease, and they're like mini antennas. And then the larger one, and then micro antennas broadcast, and it's like amplifying it across the landscape. Information. And it's weird because it changes the microbial colonies that form in the given area, which shows that life itself is, microbes are the software, and they in our bodies as well, we know that with our microbiome, but with the landscape as well, they're evolving faster than everything else, and they're responding to electric and magnetic and other stimuli. That's my theory, at least. The Earth's magnetic field, exiting oddly enough from the South Pole, which on a bar magnet is the North Pole. Don't get dyslexic on me. A bit complicated, but it's much as to say that magnetic fields flow in specific orientations, and it's the same with torus fields. And as they exchange information, you might have energy leaving from one area, entering another. And there's a lot of research in the slide deck on magnetic fields and pulsed magnetics and different forms of magnetism, ferrite magnets, strong magnets, weak magnets, and different effects on plants. And the summary of that is basically, we don't have a bloody clue. But I'll pretend that I do. No, so every plant is unique. Some plants respond favorably to one particular magnetic field where others don't. And that's why this technology hasn't been applied at scale, because it's very difficult to replicate. And because the people who are researching it are doing artificial forms of magnetism and electricity. They're trying to push instead of pull. They're not creating a conduit between forces. They're pushing their forces upon something. And it's like just throwing the die. You're going to get snake eyes? And that's going to grow? Maybe, but probably not. And that's why it's not taking on. And there's other reasons for that. We can speak on the censorship of our community, shadow banning, big ag, chemical, all that stuff. But no. This is one form of magnetoculture using magnets, ferrite magnets, done by a man named Yannick Van Doorn in France. He pioneered it. And he took that man Christophe Flo's work even further, and he put ferrite magnets covered in beeswax and oriented them with the Earth's magnetic field, and he could channel energy even further. I tried it on potatoes, and I actually did it in reverse. Turns out this is much more complicated than... Well, that was 5 years ago. Since then, I've tried other things, and it works. But I had no results with the potatoes until I experimented with the proper orientation. And in fact, I've had adverse effects when used incorrectly. This is a spiral made with galvanized steel. It's ferromagnetic, meaning it aligns permanently with a magnet. And notice this like Jesus on the cross plant here, that little one that wants to open, but it can't. Well, it just hung out there. I mean, I guess I'm just like the people who torture rats. I did it with the plant. It's all for science. Well, it as long as I kept that there, it wouldn't open. Wouldn't open because it was in the wrong orientation of the Earth's magnetic field in relation to where it was sitting. It couldn't do syntropy. It couldn't expand its cells out with the Fibonacci sequence and go like Vitruvian Man, Leonardo's man. It was like the weight. Same thing with trees. I use antennas that use magnets as well with trees, and you can have the inverse effect. You can stimulate a plant. You can also, in what I learned, you can kill a plant. And oddly enough, this tree of paradise, which people hate it. Why, I don't know, but tree of paradise, it is a tree of paradise. It's so beautiful. It smells, and it's invasive. It's invasive. No, it grows because it can pump a lot of carbon into the soil and grows where other trees don't. Great. Perfect. But in this case, I had an antenna that had fallen over with the wind. And it's really spiky and jabby, and I have got young kids, and I was like, I didn't have time to bring out my compass and orient it with the magnetic field. I'm just like, get that back in the ground and get back to work. I don't get my kids jabbed or break a soccer ball, football. And lo and behold, I started to see that that tree started to die very quickly. I am a real jerk. I left it there for 3 weeks. I watched as it slowly wilted and died away. I won't do it again, but that's enough. Now you all know. Trees are antennas. But what are the antennas to? I mean, that's what I'm trying to convey, right? This communication. It's the same thing as the neurons wanting to unite. It's the same thing as the earth, right? And the sun. Magnetic fields and teardrops of the earth's magnetic field and diurnal rhythms. It's strange how all these cycles change the results, and plants are mirroring that. Stones are amplifying that. We're getting bombarded with cosmic particles. This is the torus field of the earth, right? It's not how we usually see it. This is the better depiction. And it's just getting hit like a drum. Bam, 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 bam. You know, you think of the Earth's heartbeat. I mean, boom, 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 rhythmically entrained with the sun. It's all connected. And plants, they're fractalizing that rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. We're forest bathing. We're in the forest. Our hearts are connecting to that rhythm, right? It's really quite beautiful, but it shows you that we are indeed all interconnected, and we can, if we know that, we can change things. This is the Schumann resonance of the Earth. Has anyone heard of the Schumann resonance? Who hasn't heard of this? No, that's mean. Let's just assume most of you have heard of it. If you haven't, the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance, I don't know what it is. No. The truth is, I don't think a lot of people really fully grasp it. It seems to be formed through electrical discharge of energy, lightning bolts. Like lightning is going off all the time at some point in the world. Lightning is striking. And anytime lightning strikes, it sends out electromagnetic fields, and it moves across the Earth. And that particular range, that measurement in hertz, the number of times it oscillates per second, signifies what it is. And the Schumann range is typically 7.834. It seems arbitrary, because anytime I look at it now, it's like, how he came to that number, I have no idea. The point is it's changing all the time, but I'm convinced that it's because of, it's like the cymatic patterns that you shared, Fred. Yeah, Fred's work, check it out. He's in the back there. And I think it's important, because I'm convinced that there are ways that we can. How many here are scared about EMF fields? Like, let's be honest. Let's put the ascension stuff aside. Who actually feels a little bit uncomfortable when you think of like 5G and towers put up everywhere, and drowning out the Earth's natural frequencies, etc. Yeah, it is kind of like, oh. That's why, there's beautiful, beautiful shungite in the back. If you don't already have shungite, put it on. Trust me, it's valuable. So if you're scared about that, put on some shungite. This is better for the landscape, and maybe even putting shungite in is actually going to be my next step. So this man here, Phil Callahan, he's deceased now. He was a pioneer of paramagnetism, which I won't go into the definitions of that. We don't have enough time. But it's much as to say that some substances align temporarily in the presence of magnetic fields, right? And there are certain stones, volcanic stones. Remember I talked about the angle of volcanoes, right? And how their sacred mountains are the same, and that rising energy. Well, and the energy from the sun comes in, and then like a pressure release valve is like, and it burns everything, and people will get covered in ash, and it seems like apocalypse, right? But it's also the most creative, profound, life-enhancing force that exists on this planet. Go figure. Just like that lightning strike that destroyed my house and, really put a wrench in my family. And it's like, oh, yeah, that sucks. Oh, yeah, I still have to go home after this and work on a chainsaw in 40 degrees Celsius for the next month. But, at the end of the tunnel, something comes out of these moments, right? And the creative destruction force is intrinsically part of this matrix. And it's not bad. Volcanoes are actually life-seeding. Wherever a volcano has rained down, give it eons of time, but life emerges stronger. And this guy here, Phil Callahan, he had the idea that, well, if I take this type of stone that came out of magma and turned into a powder, if I put that into a cone, and I put that on the Earth, it should have a positive influence on life. And he was a radio engineer in World War II in the UK here. And RAF pilots out to, drop bombs as they did back then. He wanted to make sure they were safe. So his role was to communicate back and forth, right? Make sure that no one die along the way and whatnot. And he sends a signal out and there's no signal back. And it's in his locale, which means, the Germans are actually here. This is a problem. He's panicking. He's like, what is this? Why is the signal coming back? Could it be something else than the fact that they crashed? Which is good he did that. He realized in Ireland, have anybody heard of the round towers of Ireland?
Yeah.
So these conical towers, these cylindrical towers with the cones on the top, he realized that these towers were taking, I was about to speak Italian, prending into English. They're prending. My daughter does that all the time. Now I do it too. He was observing that these towers were attracting radio wave signals. ELF range, very low range, the Schumann resonance. Because he inferred that, at least because the radio signals that he was sending out were not getting out to the pilots. They were going straight into the tower. And he's like, why is that? Could that have utility? So he made miniature versions. After he realized, first he went out to a remote area in Ireland with one of these round towers on an island, and all the farmers would bring their cattle and their livestock over to this island. With great expense. They'd barge them out because the grass was greener. And he's like, He made miniature versions, and lo and behold, radish sprouts underneath the towers grew bigger. Great. This is like standing stones. Similar. And this is what I said about that person where I put with a colleague, we put the towers down on the land and this is the principle. We don't have to wait for a volcanic eruption to regenerate the Earth. So if we could maybe do it beforehand, as all that surplus energy is coming down, maybe we can ground it into the Earth and we don't have to deal with the, apocalyptic Earth changes. Yeah, I hope so. Right? You guys are going to do the work, right? Right?
Yeah. With you.
Yeah.
Right? With you.
Together. Because it needs to happen, and there are ways to do it really simply, like terracotta pots. We can speak about this if you want to talk with me at any other point after about the hows behind it. This is to show you, right, that electric differential with the round towers. This is one of the round towers in Ireland. It's showing the voltage differential. It's showing the electrons rising up. So this is the thing. Online, if you hear people, and there are all kinds of greasy people who are they're trying to become influencers in electroculture, and they have no understanding. Oh, is that my ego? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, come on, man.
But how many times people are saying, it's channeling electrons down, and it's moving in, and it's doing that, and it's like, well, maybe it's not. Like this here, these are electrons, because the Earth is negatively charged. Think electrons. They're moving up to the top. And electrons, they're always moving, right? And they're getting hit. This is the way I see it. They're getting hit by radio waves. And it's causing them to oscillate. And the rhythms of the Earth's natural rhythms then, therefore, are being oscillated by the electrons that are moving through us, right, when we're grounded, that are moving through this human-made tower, that are moving through the trees, that are pulsing, that are breathing. And in doing so, it's sending out that carrier signal and having that effect and amplifying that upon the landscape. So it's quite beautiful, really, that we can actually have built environments that heal spaces and not make us feel like we're in a communist dystopia.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, organic shapes. Go figure. Go figure. Biomimicry works. Yeah, and you can put crystals in, you can put spirals in these round towers, and they become amplifiers of whatever is in there, really. And there are even farmers who are doing radionic devices who are putting in like homeopathic remedies of things for the landscape, and is taking that signature and broadcasting it out. The Mayans did that with their calendar. They were literally they were amplifying qualities on certain days. And they would use radionic devices to reduce pestilence and disease, which is like, gosh, we really know nothing. Well, we do know a lot, but when it comes to this stuff, like, oh, we're just starting to remember. This was a carrot I grew. And you see this thing? It looks like a monster, doesn't it? Like, farmers say when you fork a carrot, it's not good, right? It's like fork carrot, lower yield. Well, every fork of that carrot was just as big as a normal carrot. I was like, yeah. But you know what happened? I let that carrot go to seed on its own, and it regrew the following year. Well, 2 years after. How that worked, I don't know. Stayed dormant, popped up 2 years later. And I was watching it grow, and I'm like, yeah, another big carrot, another big carrot, another big carrot. I go to pull up the carrot. I pull up this like real little tiny woody little narrow little thing, and it reverted back to its progenitor, its wild ancestor.
Wow.
And then I had the realization, I'm like, yeah, maybe big doesn't always matter. Maybe it's not big we're looking for, but this is the beautiful thing. If we want to heal the planet, in some ways we just kind of have to let it do its thing. In other ways, we got to know that we got to push it in the right direction. We got to just get a little bit of a stimulus, just get the ball rolling, and then once it's got the momentum, it will find its way. So we don't have to do all the work, but we have to do some of it. We have to show up, absolutely. And this is one of the techniques that I use, which is taking that. When I spoke about a volcano and its angles and being charged, when you think of the work of, there's a researcher, Wilhelm Reich. Has anyone heard of orgone energy? Yeah. So in short, high heat, high pressure, right? Think lightning strikes, think volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts. Do you know there's a fourth one? Orgone energy? Can anyone name it? I think one person. Crop circles. Yeah, that's fullerene molecules. That's for another day. But the unique compounds that form in the carbon of the soil that hold on to electrical charge. But this here is me trying to mimic because the thing is what that powder is volcanic magma that had hardened thousands and thousands of years ago and was mined down into a powder. It has a lot of minerals. And at first, when I was approaching it from nutrition, I was like, to grow nutrient-dense food, you just need to have more minerals in the soil. And yeah, that makes sense, right? If you don't have certain mineral, but I'm starting to realize that no, it doesn't always make sense. There are some cases where transmutation occurs and minerals can turn into other things due to harmonics, and that's brilliant. So this particular example here, that powder hadn't been in a volcano for a long time, and it didn't have that life force energy, that orgone energy. But when I put it into the pyramid, and I oriented the pyramid with the Earth's magnetic field, oh, hello, under the sea, and I oriented it with the Earth's magnetic field, And I timed it with an app on my phone. Go figure, I can use an app now, right? Tell me the sun weather today is this and that. Yeah, you can monitor the sun. And when it was particularly strong, I charged it and I broadcasted it and I got this carrot. So we can recharge things that have their half-life over time has been diminished, right? And this is a case of that. How many people are feeling the post-carb blues here?
No.
Everyone, no. Just stand up a moment. Just stand up, do a little shake, okay? Come on. I'm sure there's someone in the room that's like, I want to politely leave and go sleep in the corner, but maybe they'll see me. Well, you're free to do so, please, because I felt that way the other day and a bee went into my mouth.
Oh.
Yeah, who saw it? Who was there?
I was sitting by you, yeah.
Yeah.
Did it sting you?
No.
It flew back out.
So
Spit it out.
I was sitting there falling asleep, and I grabbed my stuff, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I'm gonna disturb it, everything. Yeah. And I'm like, I wake up and there's this bee and it's like landing on my nose. And I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? No. It bounces on my nose, bounces off my face, and it won't go away. And it keeps coming back. So I'm like, trying to blow it. And then it flies straight to my mouth. I'm like, okay, I'm awake. I won't fall asleep. I gotta hear this. Yeah, this is interesting there. That is that magma here hardening when it reaches the sea, forming polygons, pentagons, and hexagons, which is, oddly enough, connected to the Earth. Fred had showed me in his presentation if I get it correctly, pray to God, pray to Jupiter, 2 rods in the ground connected together created a standing wave that was in the shape of a pentagon when applied to water. And this is water with a hexagon. Has anyone heard of Veda Austin?
Yeah.
So that's a picture of hers in the presence of a pyramid. And on the tip of it is this pattern, which is the pattern of the very stones hardened at the sea that I placed in the pyramid. I don't know, maybe it's a coincidence. And, gave that kind of result. Yeah, so I've then started to take this and apply it to some clients working with their lawns. Go figure, people still want lawns in 40-degree weather, but I get paid for it. I suppose I can do it for a while until the universe gives me other things. I'm at service. And lo and behold, I was making microbes, right? The culturing microbes and applying these type of powders and things to the landscape, and things would go greener and plants would photosynthesize better and they'd need less water. He'd spend less money on electricity. It was like a win-win, right? Less need for nitrogen fertilizer, less pollution of the groundwater, all these benefits. And I was just a consultant, and I couldn't keep the microbial colony going because it was a lot of work and I didn't have enough clients at the time to scale it. So that year I didn't make that colony, that microbial colony. And so he's like, well, we need to do something. And my hands are off. I've done everything I could. Like, okay, if you want to do something, fine, work with someone else. And he did. So he sprayed fungicide preemptively on his lawns. Which, that's what people do. You might be surprised, but most people do. Go figure. And lo and behold, it was the worst year for the lawns. So working with nature on many levels, it's about finding equilibrium. It's not about eradicating and forcing things to happen. So this is a guy here. This is amazing. This is a man named Charles Hubbard from Nova Scotia. He's deceased now. Once more, if you want the slide deck, I have it. It's interactive. There are links in it. If you want to research any of these things further, it's all there. Happy to give it to you. He used the pyramid in a greenhouse form, and he planted potatoes. Has anyone here planted potatoes before? Okay. Can anyone give me an idea of a harvest that you might have had from one potato plant? 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, yeah. 10 is like, 10, 12 is like considered really good. Do you know how, I don't know, he planted potatoes around the perimeter of his copper-lined greenhouse, like a pyramid, Giza proportions. And in the corners, do you know how many he harvested? I can't remember. No, on the corner, I believe it was 120. What is it there? No, 80. This is there, he did it since then as well. It was 80. Okay. 80 potatoes from the plants on the corners, 40 to 50 potatoes around the perimeter. So has anyone, you've heard, right, the idea that that shape form can channel energy? I mean, that's not electromagnetism, surely, that's causing that to occur. I don't know, but I don't think so.
Pyramid copper, was that made of difference, what it was made of?
There's conjecture. There are some camps that say one thing, some that say another, and I don't have enough direct experience to say otherwise. But typically, I prefer to work with copper. Yeah. With plants. Yeah, and it has to do with the geometry, and I've got a podcast episode where I spoke with this guy, and Charlie Zees is his name, and he spoke about angles and stars and their alignments and all the connections there with the geometry and the encoding and in Fibonacci patterns and pyramids, and I was like, okay, well, that's the secret. That's why. Nature wants to take these patterns, and we see that. This is a beautiful book. And we see this in the way that flowers form, right? They take the same kind of patterns. We see that with the cymatics, with the frequencies, right? And we see that with the way stellar bodies move and dance together. There are certain geometries that show up everywhere, the whole as above, so below principle. And it's my view, the little book of coincidence in the solar system, write that down. Really beautiful pictures in there. The little book of coincidence in the solar system. Yeah, because it's all little coincidences, right? Little coincidences together make something greater. You'll never look at flowers the same again. And it was my view then, well, if we can mimic different geometries in designing, if I can do that in designing gardens and landscapes, if I can do that in selecting where certain trees go, if I can do that with anchoring in towers and devices, then maybe I can catalyze the energy that's already flowing, and lo and behold, the results have spoken for themselves. It's giving credence to what I felt intuitively. And, this is lunar cycles, and, this is more than what I can go into presently, but there's a lot to it. This is interesting. This is a study that showed that trees respond electrically hours before, my brain is having a little fart here. Hours before an eclipse. Oh, is that word not coming to my head? I guess I'm getting tired. An hour before, but it was 6 hours before an eclipse. The largest tree that had electric probes in it changed its voltage gradient before the passage occurred. What is that?
Yeah.
It's Darwinian evolution adapted in order to. That's what the paper said.
Yes.
That's what the paper said. This guy here, Pier Luigi Aguina, well, he says otherwise. This is his depiction of light. He has this drawing. This is from like the 30s, depicting his theory of the magnetic monopole, and it is it's really beyond what I can share here, but I have a whole podcast episode on that very guy and his work. If you want to listen to it, just leave your email afterwards. And it happens to mirror photons as we know it holographically. The shape that they form it's identical. And oddly enough, I found that the cymatic wave in sand on a plate seemed to take on the same form when these two things came together, which sound and light come together to make the universe. Well, maybe there's something more to it. I don't know. Everyone tells me it's like, well, it's not 440 hertz. I'll tell you that. And you're probably right. But I haven't seen what 432 hertz looks like, or anything else for that matter. Yeah, and we can see this through different camera lenses as well, the changes in light. We can infer different things based on that, and the way shape and form and location changes the way light moves. I was going to have a stall that was going to sell some stuff, and I had these photonic filters. They never came. So I don't have the box of things, but if you're interested, you can speak to me later. You can find a solution. There are ways that you can observe this stuff. And I did tests with plants, and there's a spiral there, larger results. The workshop I'm doing after this, apparently, if you want, I can show you how to make these spirals, and we can make them together. That's a video, it doesn't work. George Lukoski, he was a very interesting pioneer, worked with oscillating circuits, which many people wear as torques. Maybe some of you have them as bracelets on. Did you know that if you change what hand it's on, it's going to change the effect? If you change the metals, if you change the way it's oriented on your wrist, it's going to either increase your auric field or decrease it. It's not always a good thing. So we can douse that together in the workshop if you're interested. If you have a torque, you can make sure your jewelry is going to increase your biofield. And he did tests with plants in the 1920s using copper wire, very thick gauge, and had the opening face magnetic, geographical north, like magnetic north, so like, sorry. I get confused because I'll speak geographical north, opening north, which happens to be magnetic south, but don't get confused, it's geographical north, and roughly. The plants grew bigger, and people in our group have started to replicate that, and they're seeing the same results, which is showing that these type of things can be not just beneficial to plants, but to us as well, if used correctly. Which is why I say it's not about plants, it's about life. And I have some guides available for purchase online, digital guides that help you build different devices. If you're interested as well, it's all here in the slide deck. We can speak about it. He induced cancer in plants, and he was able to reverse it with this technology. I worked with people who, this guy said he had 10% egg weight increase, and some of his chickens were laying 2 eggs a day, which I don't think that's fair for the chickens, but but the point is it seems to stimulate life. That same guy, Christoph Flo, that I showed you before, he didn't know George Lukoski, and he had patents for the same device, which is interesting to see. God doesn't give ideas to one person in a vacuum. This is interesting. How many know about tensor rings? If you don't, look up the guy Slim Sperling. This took this work to a whole new level. He was an incredible dowser in the United States, and hilarious. You know, his avatar, he was like this cowboy guy with a big beard, and hilarious. He obviously smoked because he's got nicotine all around his beard. Probably not on camera, but you couldn't hide your secret there, man. And as I started making tensor rings and doing experiments, I gifted one to my wife, which was nice harmonics, and starting to do experiments with plants, getting my kids involved. You know, there's my daughter Tulsi there with a nice one on her head, a little brace, keeping her hair back. My son helping me twist the wire with a drill. It's all in guides that I have available, helping you do that. You can make different three-dimensional shapes as well that, you know, creates a field effect. And I think it helps with manifestation, because the harmonization effect, right, is amplifying that radius of your heart. So they're manifestation devices as well as stimulating life. Go figure, it's all connected. And many people did it. Even Wilhelm Reich and this guy, which I couldn't remember his name yesterday, Daryl George Langham, he worked with sesame seeds, and he was able to get greater growth rates and yields just by putting these on. Wilhelm Reich on his house, which I came across this. He's never spoke about it in his books, to my knowledge. So that was that. That was full circle, coming back to my original design and creating that type of form etherically over the garden. So we've got I'm also Mark Lieb.
Yeah.
If you're interested, his work's very interesting on that too, and he does that with houses. I'm trying now to do that with garden design. So if anyone is interested, you can speak with me. I can help you with building the most abundant gardens and most beautiful gardens possible. That's my manifestation dream. Nudge, nudge.
It's happening, right? It's happening now.
Yeah, and if anyone's interested too in doing any workshops, I want to do a circuit in the UK in the year ahead. I'm not able to disseminate this presently in Italy. I don't have enough Italian, and the culture isn't really ready for this at the scale that what I see here. So I want people to collaborate with. I want people who want to demonstrate this stuff. But I want you to remember the most important thing, the most important takeaway is that it's not these little devices. And I showed you a few. There are a lot more, at least 20 or 30 that I'm aware of. We've got the power. We've got the power. We're doing it. You know, we are communicating with all things, but we're doing it with plants all around us all the time. This is a story I'll share in the next workshop. It's a little bit of a cliffhanger. Or if you aren't coming, you can ask me at mealtime. I'm happy to share it. The largest castor bean that I ever grew, I grew it in the most rubbish soil ever. Compact, full of chlorinated water from our pool, stepped on, discarded, stripped of the topsoil, non-aerated, no microbes, rubbish. All the metrics were bad, and it was the largest castor bean I ever grew.
Wow.
So we can do miracles.
Yes, we can.
We can do miracles. Oh my gosh, we can do miracles. And that we can also do horrible things. You know, like we can distort. And this is a reminder here. This is a particular project that didn't go well. Go figure. Like working with people, sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And who gets the blame when you exchange money for something?
Sure.
You're like, well, excuse me, but you got a bit of resentment. Or excuse me, maybe you should be aware that your love is going to, if you don't love your garden and your plants and you're stressed out, there's going to be an inverted effect.
Yeah.
It's not my fault, man. Like I did everything right.
Yeah.
And this example here, this was a plant that was infested with a parasitic weed that sucked the life force. It wrapped around and literally sucked all the lymph, the life force out of the plant. And the first plant it went to was a rue. It was like a wormwood. And in folklore, the wormwood is the protector of the land, the person's home and land. And it went to affect the person's home and land because the person was under, I won't go into their personal details, but was under a great deal of stress. So our landscape starts to entrain with us. If you're fortunate enough to have your own little piece of paradise or even a rental place where you feel like it's your home, you are intrinsically connected to all the plants that are on that landscape. Intrinsically. And they're connected to you. They're gonna give you the medicine you need as well, which is beautiful. So that's it for the presentation here. This is I have some products on a table over there. No, I don't. The box never came. But I do garden designs and consultations. I also am working on some workshops online and potentially in real life for those who are interested. Because I don't want to just work online. It's empty. It's hollow.
Yeah.
I want real life experience with people, see real life results. if you're interested, afterwards you can come to me and leave me your email, your contact. But we have time, maybe 5 minutes for a couple questions. Do we?
Yeah.
Where are we at?
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Where did you get
Well, one second. You had your hand up first. This is like high school all over again.
Sorry.
So the oak tree doesn't die when the lightning strikes.
It's my understanding that some oak trees will die depending on the impact, but some oak trees will stay alive and withstand the lightning strike. And I think it has to do with the fact that they accumulate iron and they're able to discharge that energy quickly and effectively and ground it into the earth. And in doing so, when lightning strikes carbon in the soil, it forms these three-dimensional carbon molecules that are perfectly formed, like soccer balls. And that is the greatest longevity substance that we know dissolved in water on mice, these fullerene molecules. And I think it's the secret of the fountain of youth. Lightning striking down and water rising up. And it's often the place where there's a temple to Venus as well. So it's strange connections with the geometry, because the Earth and Venus, when it dances together, it takes on the same geometry of the pentagram in that, which is weird. It's layered. So yes, some oak trees do die, but some stay alive. James?
I was just going to say, who'd like to do a weekend workshop with Ray? Anyone up for that?
Woo!
Let's make it happen later on in the year, shall we? Let's give Ray a round of applause.
Thank you. We're gonna be doing it at your place, man.
Doing it at our place, yeah. It's sunny Suffolk, if anyone fancies it, you know. The locals don't bite too hard, so.
We'll build a power tower. How about that? We'll learn how to build some of these towers. We'll charge the land. You do your healing sound chanting, and that layers perfectly. It'll amplify the work you're doing. Everyone wins, and we can organize it so you can take home your own material and have a mini version that you can place strategically in your home or your landscape. So let's do that. Yeah. Epic. Okay, another question. Yes?
Do you think the Earth switched its magnetic field then, and is it going to do it again?
I don't know. No, the Earth's magnetic field, to my knowledge, has changed many times in north to south. And oddly enough, there seems to be a connection between the changes of the Earth's magnetic field and the spin that forms on things like snail shells and other organisms. There seems to be a connection. I don't know if that's true. So the Earth's magnetic field, to my knowledge, it hasn't changed in recent, but it's migrating. It's migrating fast. The north magnetic field is moving a lot. And that's where I think geometry and amplification. I have a theory that the Giza pyramids, won't go too detailed into it, were oriented not magnetic north, but absolute north. And I think the geometry that they encoded between the Earth, the planet, the sun, the moon, and the harmonics of light was a tool that was used to minimize Earth changes that happen cyclically with these 32,000 year cycles? What was this, someone? 26, okay. 26,000 year cycles. I think there's something there. So I think we can stabilize it, but
25,920.
Oh, yeah.
excellent. There we go, Fred. Yes.
The number of helix in a day, and it's also a frequency of C and Hertz.
Excellent. We're gonna work together, Fred, and figure out a way to apply this, because Fred has various things on his website. He's got prints of cymatic waves, which are very beautiful and very interesting, and he also works with a lot of sound, and he's got tuning forks, harmonic forks, and various things. And we're going to do some experiments with plants. So it's nice to validate with plants, because then it gives that confirmation for yourself as well. Did you have a question? Or no, sorry. Anyone else? There's time for one more. Yeah.
What do you recommend for a beginner?
For a beginner, if you have the opportunity to come to my workshop, which I think probably some of you are probably going to stay here there's some pretty cool stuff next. So no hard feelings, honestly. If I was you, I would probably go somewhere else too. Well, I actually don't know. I think it's immediately after, and it's not here. It'll be in one of the smaller tents. Birch at 4 o'clock in half an hour. Yeah, and what I'll do, so I'll answer your question, beginner things that you can do. If you have copper wire, or you want to work with copper wire, that is the gateway that people use. And many people will take a stake, like a bamboo cane or a stick or something, and they'll wrap copper wire in a counterclockwise motion, which is the same spin of the Earth. And they'll wrap it up, and then they'll create a little spiral on the top. And in the workshop, I'll show you how to make a spiral that's somewhat in the proportions of the Fibonacci sequence, which I think works better. And making that and putting that in your garden or next to a plant, you're going to create a unique magnetic field that comes off of that, and I think is beneficial to life as a result. So that's a good starting point. Yeah, it's easy. Yes, Bree. You can use sheathed copper wire, but I would recommend that you strip it. Yeah, and you didn't get that from me because I'm not responsible if you cut yourself. There are ways online. You can look on YouTube. There are ways to do it relatively safely with a sharp knife. You can strip it. But the problem I see, though, with a lot of copper wire from electricians is they're small grade wire together. And in doing so, they tend to cut you when you're working with it. They're pokey, you got to wear gloves. And two, they have a larger surface area, so they oxidize very quickly. And the oxidization minimizes the current flow, and therefore the result. So it's worthwhile to buy, you get even 1 millimeter copper wire is sufficient. I actually would start with enameled aluminum wire, because it's similar conductivity, it's a heck of a lot cheaper, and you can do different colors. And if you are familiar with biogeometry or the work of colors as frequency, you can do different colors to get different results. And typically using colored wire from enameled aluminum, Ben Craft, you can get it from Amazon or a local craft store. Aluminum wire, you can go to 2 millimeters and even 3 millimeters. And in doing so, you've got something that's rigid and will maintain its shape, and yet soft enough to work with your hands without needing pliers. And using colors on the peripheries of the electromagnetic spectrum. So think red, blue, violet seem to have a greater visual impact on plants. Whereas green, where they're at in the center, probably is harmonic, and we don't see the effects because it's not forcing them to do something they don't want to do. But I think there's a connection with you think of red and blue light. You know, cannabis growers change red and blue light cycles to induce flowering, I think color is also imparting information with electrical signals. One more question, and then we can wrap it up. Okay. Okay, great. Well, that is it. If anyone wants to speak with me, I'll be here for a little while longer. Thank you all.